Well, good morning. Answer me this, question number 10. This question comes from Lorraine. Thank you, Lorraine, for this question. And I knew it would be political, but here it is. Should churches be influencing their members on who to vote for, as in for government? And well, I chose this question because I just wanted to have an excuse to talk about politics. We came close to an election ourselves here in Canada, and that may still happen. But of course, the United States is just about done, or maybe done by the time this video comes out. I don't know, with their election. From my perspective, there are two clear sides to this picture, and I'm talking about the American election right now. Despite Trump and Biden, that's the way I'll say it. Despite, okay, Trump and Biden, they just happen to be, the head of their parties at this moment. But despite those two guys, they represent two very different visions of the future of their country, or the present of their country. One is Christian and one is not. And be careful, I'm not saying that, okay, Trump is a Christian and Biden is not. Again, they represent views, right? Views or a vision of the future of the country. So one has a Christian vision of the country, and one does not have a Christian vision of the country. And so don't underestimate this point of view. So, these two sides have such a different view of, for instance, their own history, the history of the United States, the history or their Constitution, what the Constitution means, or how important the Constitution is going forward, or whether the Constitution should be changed or should it stay the same. Or policies encouraging independent business rather than the central control of big government programs. And by the way, I thought I should maybe offer a definition of socialism. Now, having lived in another very different part of the world, I can offer this definition of socialism. Socialism is when production, distribution, and exchange in the economy is owned or regulated by the government. Okay, so production, distribution, exchange is owned or regulated by government. That's socialism. And so, countries have varying degrees, I guess, of socialism. And in Canada, we are a little bit higher up on the scale of socialism than the United States. But still, there's very different views here on policies. One side encouraging independent business and so on. The other side that is much more for central control of big government and big government programs and stuff like this. One side actually lives and believes in God we trust. Whereas the other side, God we trust is just the thing that's printed on their money. In other words, has no more meaning than that, and probably they would want to get rid of that if they could. So, watching the rallies, the Republicans have no problem praying and asking God's help and direction. They pray for their candidate and so on. Like, it's very, very overt, and I cannot say the same thing for the other side at all. I'll give you this. Election spending this time around hit $14 billion. I mean, that is more than double what was spent in the last American election. Double. And the Democrats spent 2 times more than Republicans. Now think about that for a second. The Democrat Party spent twice as much in this election as the Republicans did, and they still didn't win decisively. I mean, I'm going to make this video very obsolete, by saying anything, but it seems to me after spending all of that money on publicity and rallies and all kinds of stuff they do with that money, still no decisive win here. A lot of the states didn't want to be told what to think by the Democratic Party, and they voted Republican anyways. And this is not a select group of Trump supporters. This is arguably half the population of the country that voted Republican. So that's 70, half is like 70 million people. So 70 million people voted for each of the candidates. That's huge, right? 70 million is twice the population of this country. I mean, every man, woman, and child. And that's just, so anyways, it's huge. I know the politics of a whole country can be much more complicated, but I'm giving you my perspective here as a pastor. The government, the way it works in the States is the government should listen to the voice of the people. That's just the way the American system was built. So what is the voice of the people? What do people believe? We know that we know what the American media believes, and we have seen that the media, for the most part, doesn't represent the voice of the people properly anyways. My case in point is the polls. Looking at the polls going into this election, they were dead wrong in 2016, and they were again really wrong, in some cases so wrong this time as well. So the big question, and I'm kind of delaying my answer here, right? Does the church have a duty and responsibility to shape what people believe? Well, American Christians have no problem here with saying, yes, of course, the church should be involved in shaping the voice of the people. In the case of the United States, the church was shaping what people believed before the early colonies even had a centralized government. In other words, the church was involved in shaping the Constitution, the laws, government, and the government as a whole of the United States. Anyone who knows anything about American history is very clear about this. So what about in Canada? Should we be staging, campaigns to get people to vote a certain way? Well, our history is different than the USA, and the people's relationship with the government is certainly different as well. But of course, a big part of what we do here, especially in evangelical Protestant churches, a big part of what we do here is teach. I mean, but teach what? Sure, we teach about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, but the Bible has a lot more to say than that. A lot, how to live as people. A people of God in this world. The Bible has a lot to say about that. What is our responsibility towards nature? What is the meaning of life? What does it mean to be created in the image of God? What responsibilities do I have in relation to other people? What does ownership mean? How should I spend my money? Shouldn't the answers to these questions lead us to vote a certain way? Well, of course, Christians should have a very different world view than most people, than other people, right? And so you kind of have my answer here. I need to tie in scripture. So, there's over 30 proverbs about kings and how they should rule in the book of Proverbs. And maybe that's because the writer of Proverbs was a king, or maybe because this was an important issue to right? Maybe. So Moses had whole chapters dedicated to government and how it should be run. And there are many passages in the New Testament as well. And I'm not going to take the time to go through all this corpus of material in the Bible about government. But let's look at this one passage this morning from Proverbs. It's Proverbs 25, verses 4 and 5. It says, "Remove the dross from the silver, and a silversmith can produce a vessel. Remove wicked officials from the king's presence, and his throne will be established through righteousness." So, in other words, righteousness is, well, first of all, righteousness is a biblical principle, right? So a throne or a government cannot be properly established without biblical principles as a foundation and as and guiding that government. There must be biblical principles, or else a government cannot be established. Well, I think I've been long enough this morning, and so I'm going to kind of leave you with that. That's the beginning of my answer to the church and politics and how to vote. If you have any further questions, any specific questions, I love talking about politics. Have a great day. God bless.